Hey guys, today I want to talk about how to get a job in data science, right? A lot of people are working very hard improving their data science chops. Maybe you're coming over from software engineering. Maybe you're coming over from academia. That's what I did. I dropped out of a PhD in economics. I moved into data science about 3 years ago now. You could be coming from analytics. Maybe you were a market analyst at a consulting firm. A lot of different professions and kind of just career paths lend themselves to moving in the direction of data science. So what I want to do here today is basically help you and give you my advice, and of course it's my advice, and I'm gonna come down pretty dogmatic on a couple of these points. And there's other people who give you different advice, but I feel pretty strongly at this point, and I've worked at a lot of different places. So I'm going to give you my advice on how to go about actually getting a job in data science. All right. So typically, and this is beyond. This is like once you've kind of like taken the time to like generate the like required skill sets. You've done all the Udacity classes. Maybe you've gone to a boot camp. So once you've kind of continued to like acquire those, or you've gotten those skills and you feel pretty confident, this is what I would recommend. Okay, so first of all, my first point here, and this one I come down on massively, and this was actually advice I got years ago, was always create artifacts, right? And what do I mean by that? What I mean by creating artifacts is like, if you solve some problem, right? Like, it's really like in data science, we solve all types of problems, and you get some crazy insight, you made a visualization and it just stopped there, right? Or maybe you built a model and it was super interesting and you told your professor about it, or you told your friends about it, and then you stop there. And what that ends up doing is like you get a lot smarter, right? And you're solving all these problems, but it doesn't actually have any like of that lasting value, right? You want to make sure that with every problem you solve, there's so much value there, and you want to make sure that you create some type of an artifact, right? So whether that be a blog post, that's really low-hanging fruit. Write a blog post about what you just did. Take that visualization, throw it in a blog post, put a figure on it, and like write a little blog about it. Maybe submit that to like ODSC's newsletter, right? Like get some kind of value there. Another good thing to do is spin up a really simple website. Throw a login form, let someone log in, or not even log in, forget the login altogether. Just throw up a website so someone can play with the model that you just built. And then just let it sit on a server, like on a free Heroku server, and forget about it. But what this does is it creates these concrete things that someone actually can go and look at and play with. This is massive in the data science community. I think it's really hard to evaluate skill sets in a tangible way, in some things, and because people can talk the big game like as if they know all the modeling, and they can say XGBoost and they can drop deep learning and convolutional neural net, but like whether or not this person actually is worth their salt sometimes can be a little bit hard to evaluate, right? So the way you're going to separate yourself from the other 150 people applying for that job is you have a history of creating lots of valuable artifacts, right? So they can go look at that, word to vec model that you did a Tisney plot of and you threw that up on some kind of a website. They can go look at it, and then they can reference that with your GitHub repo, and they can see, oh, this guy knows what he's doing. And you want to create a history of these things. And they can be like small or large, but this is massive, right? This is massive, and not enough people take advantage of this. Plus, just remember, a lot of blogs need content, right? So don't be afraid to take the little whatever it is you went through a tutorial and you kind of extended it and threw it up in a web app. Send that to a blog. Data science blogs always want to get content like that. They always want to, tell them you're super inspired by the content, or the content they produce, and let them know that blah blah blah, whatever. Just tell them some story about that, and like submit your work over there, right? I've seen people succeed like this all the time. Okay, so that's really, I can't emphasize this fact enough. Okay, so definitely as you're moving through your data science, training, when you finish those tutorials, when you finish those little trainings, make sure you create artifacts, okay? Now, the next thing I'm going to say is generate specific value. Okay, so then this and I intend this to mean like before you even get to the company. So right, so it's general job market kind of like, you know, pretty obvious that you want to do some research on the company that you're applying to before you actually get in there and interview, so you can speak to why specifically them. You're trying to answer the question of like, the guy's gonna ask you like, why me? Why our company? And you got to have a good answer for that, right? So I'm gonna take that idea and push it a little bit further in a way that only a data scientist could do. And what I mean is, I want you guys to generate specific value for the organization that you are applying to before you even get in the door, right? So what does that mean? Maybe you're gonna, why don't you like, you know, crawl the website, right? So maybe I'm applying to Indeed, or like, why don't I just build a crawler, crawl shitloads of Indeed posts, right? All the job listings, do the natural language processing, and generate real insights about their business problems, right? You've been researching like their business model. You know that they're moving into, early days of Facebook, when Facebook was moving beyond, I don't know, when they were moving from the US to Europe and to Arabic speaking cultures. Maybe you were a data scientist. You could have said, hey, I've actually worked on how to translate my blog post into, or my post into any language, or I've worked on how that, that the NLP problems associated with like language translation or something like that, right? Just my point here is that if you want to work for some company, you better work super hard to generate some specific value for them that you can actually speak to before you get to the door, before you get to the interview. This will separate you from literally everyone. No one does this. No one does this. I do this. This is like massive for me. It also speaks to your work ethic. It speaks to like, I mean, now you have some control over, the what they're seeing, right? Like you actually know the domain they're working in. You actually can demonstrate your machine learning knowledge because you're delivering tools that are actually useful to them. So like, for example, like, sometimes you're in an interview and you're speaking about some problem. Maybe I'm interviewing for like Spotify and I'm speaking about the history I have building kind of like models for the banking space. Like, there's value there, but it's limited to an extent to what the person you're speaking to can kind of like understand, right? So, but if you guarantee that you're working on a problem that they actually are facing, this, you're speaking their language, and this is massive. This is just massive, massive, massive. There's no one you won't impress taking this approach. Finally, the other thing that I'm going to add here is like when I speak to young data scientists kind of getting into the space, I think a lot of them are scared about their kind of technical knowledge, so they spend shitloads of time just like, I'm gonna sit on HackerRank for 7 days straight or a month straight and just do problem after problem after problem, and they're trying to prepare for the technical interview. That has value. That has value. But what I'm gonna say here is that like, you know, you know, performing on the technical interview is gonna has a lot more components than just like, just your ability to like solve an algorithm, like have seen an algorithm before that's similar to one they ask you in the interview, right? The way to solve that problem in my eyes is to really do networking and build relationships beforehand, right? Figure out who works at those companies, right? Talk to them, have coffee with them, do informational interviews, go to meetups hosted at their company, right? Every big company you might want to work at is hosting a meetup every other month. Or, I was thinking about working at BuzzFeed a while back. The chief data scientist hosts a math reading group. It's like, you want to talk to these people? Go talk to them. They're touchable. Ask them about the problems that they're solving. That is the way to get in there. Now you realize, oh, interesting. You want to work at BuzzFeed. These guys care a lot about like disease propagation models because that's specifically related to like virality. Oh, interesting. Now I understand what you guys care about. I've built some kind of a relationship with you. I can actually prepare for a technical interview in a smart way. I'm not just kind of like haphazardly going through hacker ranking and every other kind of like algorithm boot camp and and trying to kind of blindly prepare for a technical interview in that way. I think, yeah, so just kind of doubling down on that point, it really, the more kind of in depth that you understand the business problems that these people are actually solving, the better understanding you'll have over the types of technical problems they'll want you to be able to speak on in a technical interview, and the better you'll be prepared for those difficult and challenging questions. And suppose they even then throw a problem at you that you haven't seen before. Likelihood is you probably wouldn't have seen it anyways if you were just going on HackerRank all day long. So I don't mean to de-emphasize, learning the algorithms. Obviously you got to know the algorithms, but at the end of the day, if you want to demonstrate prowess above and beyond the everyday person who's applying, what it really requires is in-depth understanding of the types of problems these companies are solving, to the best of your ability, trying to solve and create specific value that can be leveraged to solve that specific type of problem, right? And finally, you have a sequence or like a history of demonstrable evidence, artifacts. This is the artifacts that prove that you know your shit, right? That you know what you're talking about in that interview, and you're not just kind of blowing smoke up their ass. If you say you know convolutional neural nets, you better have an example, a blog post where you did a deep dive into the math behind convolutional neural nets, and 3 repos in your GitHub where you have played with modeling around those problems. So, I mean, with those 3 things, I think that's, and also the technical expertise to actually kind of back those 3 things up. But with those 3 things, I really think that's your best bet towards making inroads in getting a job in this industry. Yeah, but if you guys have any questions or if you have any thoughts about other things that you've tried, definitely shout them out to me. Maybe a couple other techniques that kind of are a mix of some of the things I'm talking about here that I've seen people do to some success are like, for example, you've banged your head against every textbook, every online tutorial to figure out how to, do deep learning models. Write a blog post about that and make it easier for the next guy to come along and learn the things that you had to learn the hard way, right? Expose your knowledge to the world, give it to the world, right? That's the nature of the programming community. We learn things and we make it available and easier for other people to learn those things that we just learned, right? That's the nature of this game. A really great story that I love about, getting a job in data science is that some guy I met used was, he was on Stack Overflow and he answered a really difficult, like, I think hopefully I'm not butchering the story, but basically there was someone who asked a difficult kind of statistics problem on Stack Overflow. One of the Stack Overflow actual kind of employees answered that problem, and then this other guy came along and answered it with such clarity and such like a clearly just kind of like answer to the statistics question that these guys were wondering, that when the Stack Overflow team saw how clear this man understood the problem at hand, they were like, we got to hire this guy. So just simply by interacting and creating value on the Stack Overflow platform, Stack Overflow actually came and hired him. It was just like, I mean, what a phenomenal story, right? More of those things happen, right? Imagine maybe you're in the health data domain, or maybe and you're working on, like, I don't know, some of New York's open data sets or something, and you want to get a job at within the kind of New York I don't know, some kind of like a department or somewhere, right? It's like think about what are the problems that those guys care about. what are the data sets that I can use that may help me leverage or create some answers to those types of problems, and just create the value, create an artifact, and send it to them, right? Like, so it doesn't hurt. So yeah, that's my advice on on getting a job. Once again, if you have any other thoughts, send them my way or just post it in the comments. I'm super eager and interested to hear what you guys think. So yeah, just let me know. This is fun. Until next time, all right? Peace.